Okay, I think we're live. Hello, everyone, and welcome to AgilePoint's second AI-related live stream event on LinkedIn. My name is 𝗲𝗆𝗆, and I will once again be your host. During last month's AI event, we spent a good amount of time explaining the why and the how for those who want to operationalize AI, to realize not just siloed and incremental efficiency gains, but the game-changing business outcomes that both transformation leaders and CEOs truly expect. We also showed a short teaser demo to help you visualize what operationalizing AI can look like. Now, today we're going to flip that script just a little bit. We'll spend just a little time on AI concepts to set the stage, but most of our time will be spent showing and discussing the real-world practical application of AI for your core processes. In today's message, we will cover two central themes. The first theme is cross-functional value. We want you to understand that significant business value is derived when you venture beyond the traditional silos to tackle the often more challenging cross-functional work streams. And because of AgilePoint's composable architecture, solutions for cross-functional processes can be as easy to build as simple workflows. The second theme we will cover today is AI in action. We aim to show just how quickly you can apply AI to a process of any complexity through AgilePoint's AI extenders. For this session, we are bringing back both Jesse and Lucas for an encore performance. They did such a great job last month. We're going to let them do it again. Jesse is AgilePoint's co-founder, and he will be setting the stage with a brief presentation. Lucas is AgilePoint's US lead for pre-sales, and he will demonstrate how easy it can be to build a cross-functional workflow and apply AI, not just for any process, but for a business-critical process like order to cash. Both Jesse and Lucas will be available for Q&A at the end of our session. Okay, before we get started, please note the following. This event is being recorded. Audience microphones are not enabled, so if you have questions, please post them in the LinkedIn chat, and then time permitting, your questions will be answered at the end of today's session. But if we don't get to your question, we will respond in a follow-up. Okay, with that, I'll bring Jesse into our session and we will get started. Give me just one moment to make some quick screen changes. Okay, Jesse, you are good to go.
Okay, great. Thank you, Matt. Good morning, good evening, and welcome everyone. Thank you so much for joining us today. As Matt introduced, today is more like a sequel from what we delivered the webinar back in last month. So today we actually gonna spend more time looking into how you actually can take a process, especially the cross-functional processes, that be able to operationalize AI to a process. And today we're gonna use order to cash as an example. To get started, I just want to make sure that even we use order to cash as an example, there are many cross-functional processes, and they are really the most important to drive digital transformation. As a matter of fact, in the past 24 to 36 months, we talked to a lot of digital transformation leaders, and one of the top interests when we talk to them, say why you are interested in AgilePoint, they say because they need to create more cross-functional applications. And one thing before we get started, I'm going to take about 10 minutes, kind of do a quick recap of what we covered in our last webinar, but also kind of lead to today's demo that Lucas will be showing us. But I mentioned in the last webinar that we're working on the white paper, okay, to really, in a way, to provide a guide just to show everyone, especially business executive and tech executives, how you can really operationalize AI to deliver business outcomes immediately. And this is actually, the paper now is available. So at the end of the webinar, right, we'll be sending this out to everybody has signed up. And the author of the paper was Jim Siner. Okay, I think there's no other person, right, is in a better position to really talk about this topic. Jim, as you can see, he has very splendid background and experience in the industry, right? And he was with Gartner for more than 20 years. And he actually started the BPM practice at Gartner, and also covered the RP and local. And now he's actually doing a lot of research and blog related to AI. So Jim is really in a great position to really be able to talk about this crossover topic. So I'm sure that at the end of that, I think you're gonna find a lot of really good insights from this white paper. I'm just gonna highlight a few highlights, right? So Jim, in this white paper, he mentioned that there are two ways that you are able to operationalize AI through process. Of course, you talk about why you want to do that through process first, right? Because the process is an abstraction, already, it's a level of abstraction, right? It's really the safe and secure way to operationalize AI and can impact business outcomes. But there's two ways to do that, right? One is to do that inside the process. And basically, I think every process solution can do that. Basically, we're just going to insert some actions, right, activities related to AI right in our process, right? This is very easy and straightforward. And every process solution can do this. But in this case here, right, so AI sees just the scope of that one process mostly, and is an assistant in this case. But I think it's the most strategic opportunity is how can you operationalize AI outside of the process? So what does that mean? So I'm not just inside, right? Every time we say, hey, thinking outside of the box, right? Take yourself outside of the box so that you are able to see the full spectrum of events, changes happening, right? And how can you respond to that? And that may actually cut across more than one processes, right? So this is really where that Jim pointed out that AI in this case here is a watcher and a controller, right? It's really more like a control tower of one or two or many of your processes or your automation applications, right? So when you can operationalize AI this way, you're able to look at the whole change, right? Look at the whole spectrum of change and respond to that, right? So that's why I think Jim referred this to. Later on, you're going to see how we use a drone show as a way to kind of, as an analogy, right? This is why Jim was saying that's exactly, right, where you can take business to deliver the next levels of strategic outcomes. But Jim also pointed out, right, to be able to do this, it requires a more sophisticated tiered composable architecture. And this is actually what AgilePoint started building since 2003. And we're just very happy that the market has finally caught up with our innovation. So today we're going to look at this use case demo. Luke is going to go into this. Okay, so as I mentioned, that we're going to pick the order to cash, right? So you can see here, this is a multi-string lanes, right? Cut across multiple different functional areas. But the most important thing, as you can see in this process built with AgilePoint, you see this layer here was not connecting to any processes, right? So this is really what we talk about, that tier composable architecture, that those are the AI agents built with AgilePoint AI extenders. Right? And so not only everybody can do is inside the process, you can insert AI activities, but we are able to do outside, as we talk about that more strategic, goal-directed scenarios. So how do we do that? Right? So firstly, the step one, right, is you got to be able to create cross-functional processes at scale. The thing is, it's not just cross-functional, right? Obviously, AgilePoint, when you can build more complex cross-functional processes, AgilePoint can also build simple task automation, simple workflows, functional specific workflows. But the difference is that the tier composable architecture enable that. You build those simple components, right? Automations for tasks, for workflows, they can all become asset for you to quickly compose cross-functional. Okay, so in this case here, we're gonna see laying AgilePoint on top of your existing IT stacks, right? It could be a collection of different automation technologies, but instead of building them individually in each automation application in them, and then ended up become a collection of unrelated automation applications, they can deliver silo efficiencies, but we actually, gonna be able to abstract them together with some of the system records, right? Those, the key system of records, to be able to abstract the application components, right? All the data. And the data here, we know that every company has a lot of investment in data operations, right? Many times data operations is really about analytics, but we are talking about taking data also into actions, right? So that's a difference, very big difference there. So when you do that for analytics, right, company may already build something like a data store, for example, but AgilePoint does not rely on whether you already have this or not. We can actually talk to your legacy data directly also. So from there, this abstraction framework really enables, right, to provide the loose coupling, so with the tier composability. So all this application asset from multiple different technologies now become common metadata representation. And the data now become common data model, right? There's a big difference between this and this. This is required for every cross-functional applications, right? This is more like collectively the whole infrastructure level, right? And this, so that's very important that these two are very important for any cross-functional applications so that we can make them naturally AI ready, even that each cross-functional application may leverage multiple different systems, right? Each of this asset turns into abstracted business activities, could be application related, could be data related. And this is the way that composability can happen now, right? This could be, for example, this could be an API from one of the systems, say Salesforce. This, it get used here, get used here, get used in 3 different cross-functional, for example, but there's no replication of data or application components, right? The whole thing stays as a metadata, and AgilePoint engine can directly consume the metadata, more like a 3D printer, right? This is more like your blueprint of your cross-functional applications as a model. AgilePoint engine would read this model like a 3D printer and turn it into actions. And on top of that, the tier composable architecture enable you to lay AI, we talk about that, AI sitting outside of the process, right? To acting as the control tower to be able to now orchestrate your processes, right? So when we get into the demo, how do you actually now, once you compose the cross-functional now, how are you able to really right away to operationalize AI, right? So this is really where AgilePoint's Agile AI extenders come in, right? The tiered. And this, so you are able to do that right away because we already provide out of a box. Those Agile AI extenders is just, you can now leverage them, apply to your own data, AI models. Better yet, right? We understand every organization in different industries, you have different unique competence, right? For any of those reasons, you may want to be able to leverage your unique competence as a company, right, into your operations. And that's when AgilePoint provides us SDK to enable your IT, your portion developers are able to create your own custom Agile extenders. Okay, so why this is so important, right? With these 2 steps, we can lay on top of the existing IT stacks without rip and replace. We are able to very quickly bring order to chaos, right, and deliver strategic outcomes, right? So firstly, as we mentioned that most of us, a lot of organizations are lacking this cross-functional today, right? So that because of functional silos, because of system silos, right? A lot of those different platforms, and also application silos. If you create application now, they are just one monolithic application, and they're not related, right? So all those are contributing to the silos and now preventing to really operationalize AI to deliver strategic outcomes. Right, so even this is our current state, right? Or if automation is a big initiative, right? So now we really have to think about now, how do we take the hyper automation thesis to the next level? Instead of just say different automation use cases, I'm gonna use in different automation technology to build. Ended up, they will be just different automation application silos, right? And they cannot function collectively together. So how do we take that to the next level, right? And if I build that as a silo applications and end up actually incur a lot of technical debt in different silos. So how do I unwind from here, right? So to kind of summarize that, right? So if we're lacking that, that's where a lot of companies reported the digital transformation not going well. By the same time, at the top level, when the business executive, they need to respond to opportunity and threats. And even that we have a lot of AI activity, AI, IT, application development activity going on. But all this effort lead to silos, efficiency gain, and productivity benefits, but it does not go all the way to the most strategic business needs, right? So this is really where that we share last, in the last webinar, in the Western Garden IT Symposium, right? This is very alarming to see that CEOs place efficiency and productivity in the last place, because if it's silos, they really are not helping the business top line, business goals and everything. So number one thing, right? We got to firstly reduce the complexity, right? And AgilePoint really is your chief complexity reduction officers, because it helps you reduce the complexity. It brings order to chaos, right? And they also reduce the technical debt. So one thing is this is a Forrester report, talk to 4 AgilePoint global enterprise customers. It kind of revealed that, right? Remember we said we got to go to cross-functional at scale. It was very interesting to see our customers, they use AgilePoint. 80% of the automation, 85% of automation they create are related to cross-functional. So they really use AgilePoint to create the kind of automation that have the most impact to the business outcomes, right? So by doing that, that's why we're able to bridge the gap, right? When we bridge the gap, and that enables the game-changing AI opportunities. As we say that now we are able to bridge the gap, especially we're able to operationalize AI now to process, but we're going to operationalize that to the cross-functional first, because they directly impact business outcomes. And not only we can operationalize AI to cross-functional processes, we can do that outside of the cross-functional processes, right? So this is really where that you take it to the really strategic level, right? So remember, I actually asked Jim, right? So Jim Steiner, who wrote the white paper, I said, Jim, can you share with us, right? In 30 seconds, I can actually tell my executives why this is changing the game, right? So Jim actually suggested the drum show, right? So you mentioned that he also mentioned that in the white paper. So what does that mean? So it was very interesting, right? Jim was saying that if you look, right, this is really where everybody is today. Oh, sorry. So if you think about this, you say you create an automation application using automation technology 1, automation technology 2. This may be creating a few with RPA. Now, if you think about this now, you may create those applications using a mega platform, number 1. Another application with a mega platform, maybe in HR, right? Another mega platform in ERP, for example. But the problem is everything you created now, they can only function where they are. And the other thing is they may actually also create technical debt in where they are, but they cannot mix and match them. And what we really need is everything we created, right? We need to be able to dynamically mismatch them into different shapes, right? For example, this could be for customer number 1, or for my business model number 1. Okay, or maybe I want to do this with customer number 2, or for geographic, different market business model number 2, or I can dynamically basically mix and match them, right? This is really where we're talking about when we can do outside of the process, and we can do that across multiple processes, and that's why we're able to start orchestrating, right? Multiple different applications to function. So with that, I'm going to turn this back to Matt, and for Lucas to take us into how can we do this to one of the process, and now you can start influencing how this can do across processes.
All right. Thank you, Jesse. And once again, very nice job. And now Lucas is going to give us a practical demonstration of AI being applied to the cross-functional process order to cash. This demo should take close to 25 minutes. Let me just bring Lucas front and center, and away we'll go.
And thank you, Matt. And hi, everyone. My name is Lucas. I'm on the pre-sales team here at AgilePoint, and I'll be taking us through the demo today. Now, as you've heard from both Jesse and Matt, AgilePoint is a platform that is perfect to help you operationalize your AI strategy, and to do so in a safe manner. So to help illustrate some of these capabilities today, what I'm going to do is first walk us through a few slides, just to take us through the scenario for today, which is order to cash, a great example of a cross-functional and revenue-generating use case that is perfect for the platform. And we're going to show you how AI is being brought into this application to help drive personalized outcomes, to capitalize on opportunities, mitigate threats, and really help drive core company-wide KPIs. So what we'll do today first is just walk you through the scenario, give you a sense of what's happening in our business process, and why it's so important that you can easily lay in algorithms and artificial intelligence to help drive the execution of an application of this nature. Now, just a few moments back, you heard me mention the phrase safely operationalize AI. I want to get this out of the way very early on in this presentation and just be upfront with the fact that we are not ceding control of the application behavior to an algorithm or to AI. There are very well-defined guardrails and scenarios in which the AI will take action. More importantly, the actions that AI takes, again, are very well controlled, have very well-defined guardrails, so a much safer implementation of artificial intelligence than you might otherwise see. So let's go ahead and take a look at the application itself. We'll show you how the algorithms are going to work, and then we'll show you this application at runtime. Okay, so let's take a look at the high-level details of our scenario for today. As we mentioned, the use case is order to cash, and it's a classic example of a cross-functional use case. Reason being, it cuts across a number of different departments or functional areas within an organization, and again, is a core driver of revenue for any organization. Now, the process is going to start with someone in sales initiating a new order, where they're going to input details about that order, things like products purchased, quantity, and cost, as an example. We will conditionally activate a finance and legal approval swim lane, depending on the amount purchased. And then from there, of course, we'll go through fulfillment, order insurance, shipping, accounts receivable, and finally, the delivery of those products purchased. So as you're seeing on screen, this is a great example of orchestration across humans and various systems working cohesively towards achieving various organizational goals. Okay, so this brings us to the AgilePoint AI extenders. Now, as you're seeing on screen, there are two of them. Each are monitoring key stages in this value stream and are looking to optimize the process execution and take corrective action where required. Again, to respond to threats and capitalize on opportunity. Now, for today, I'm using the out-of-the-box AgilePoint AI extenders. From the model point of view, I am using models that were generated in Amazon SageMaker. But as you're seeing on screen, please feel free to bring your own AI model into such an application. And for any developers in the room, as I mentioned, I'm using the out-of-the-box AI extenders today. If you're interested in bringing your own custom behavior from an AI extender standpoint, stick around for the end of the demo where I can show you how you can create your own using AgilePoint's extension framework. Now, the first model that you're going to see kick in very early on in the process deals with export-controlled products. Now, the scenario for today is that we are a manufacturing organization and sell a wide range of products, some of which are hazardous and, again, subject to export controls and additional layers of compliance. The second deals with shipping delays. It's no secret over the last few years that COVID and other forces have wreaked havoc on supply chains. So what this AI extender is going to do is kick in during the fulfillment stage and ensure that we can adhere or uphold the commitment that we've made to our customers in terms of delivery dates and SLAs. So again, it's going to kick in, take corrective action where it might be required. Okay, so taking a closer look at the behavior for our first AI extender around export or hazardous products, the situation that I'm going to execute here in just a second will be a new sales order for a hazardous product. However, the total order amount will be underneath the $1 million threshold. So the typical flow in that scenario would have been from sales order, skipping the finance and legal approval swim lane, and heading straight over to fulfillment. But again, because of our algorithm, it's going to kick in and recognize that this purchase contains hazardous products and is going to invoke a skip. So it's going to invoke a swim lane that would otherwise not be activated, will skip the finance step, and head straight to legal approval to ensure that we have all of our controls in place. Now, last and certainly not least, we have our second AgilePoint AI extender, again, this time dealing with shipping delays. So what this algorithm is going to do is it's going to check things like the destination of the products ordered, as well as the requested delivery date. Now, in the case that we uncover something, our algorithm is going to invoke an ad hoc rollback. It's going to roll back from the wait for shipment stage all the way back to shipping details, where we can fix the delivery date, delivery method as an example, to ensure that we can uphold the commitment that we've made to our customer. So again, all of these algorithms, all of these AgilePoint AI extenders are working together in harmony to ensure that we have the right business outcome that leads to happy customers and, of course, does not expose the company to undue regulatory risk. Okay, so since we have a few new folks attending today's webinar, I think I'll first refresh everyone on the AgilePoint design experience and why it's such a natural fit for cross-functional automation. So first, let's get started by bringing up our application for today in design mode. Now, a few moments back, we just walked through the various key stages of this application. But as we mentioned, let's quickly refresh on all of the design tools and capabilities that we have at our disposal. So the first thing I'd like to point out here, and really one of the key enablers for this operationalizing AI strategy, is that the AgilePoint platform itself is codeless. By that I mean, when I drag and drop these various human and system activities, there is not a single line of code that gets generated behind the scenes. Rather, it is an XML model that is interpreted one step at a time at runtime. So this means a couple of things. For one, it means that the process itself is inherently flexible. And again, this is what enables AI to come in and adapt and optimize the workflow while it's running. So unless your platform is codeless, this is a capability that will forever be out of reach. Now beyond this, AgilePoint has baked in more than 15 different process patterns into our designer, such that I can easily visually compose processes of any complexity, again, without writing a single line of code. In fact, in my 7 years at AgilePoint, I have yet to come across a process requirement that could not be met by the drag and drop designer. In addition, the codeless architecture means that these processes are also inherently highly performant, with high volumes of processes being run on very modest server hardware. So with that being said, let's take a look at all of the design tools that we have at our disposal. In addition to the 15 dynamic process patterns, on the left-hand side, I have access to more than 1,100 different pre-built and abstracted business capabilities that I can drag and drop onto my canvas. What's open here, as you're seeing, are eForms. This is using AgilePoint's UI technology, or feel free to bring in your own UI, but comes with a number of pre-built components to facilitate user participation. Now, some of these are going to be pretty straightforward. A start task is the first step of any business process, and the standard task can be any step thereafter. But you'll notice that we also have a few specialist activities, as we call them. One is the advanced task. Now, this does a couple of things. One, it can facilitate voting-based scenarios where we say we need 75% of the users who have been allocated a task to approve before the process moves forward. Secondly, it also supports entirely dynamic process logic where the process flow is not defined ahead of time. In other words, I can constantly add new steps in any process pattern on the fly while my process is running. Great for scenarios where I want to delegate a task to team members and colleagues without knowing ahead of time who all of those participants might be. Down below, you'll notice that we have tasks that are called anonymous. This is a great use case for external participation, where your customers, partners, or in the case of the public sector, your constituents can participate in a process outside of the boundaries of your organization. Now, one of the main core pillars of the AgilePoint platform is abstracted, business user-friendly integration. So out of the box, AgilePoint provides pre-built integrations into 110 of the most popular cloud and on-premises systems. And as I'm scrolling through the list here, you're going to see things like relational databases, both on-prem as well as in the cloud, Apache Kafka, digital signature and document generation, leading AI and IoT services, which we'll see more on later, as well as leaders in categories like ERP and CRM. So think of Salesforce, NetSuite, SAP, and Dynamics as an example. Scrolling further, you're seeing office productivity and a whole lot more. Now, to give you a sense of how this would work, let me grab the Salesforce integration. Now, this is a great example of the typical sort of integration you would see in this platform. And by that I mean, you're seeing here the integration activities go well beyond your basic CRUD. Within Salesforce, there are more than 25 actions alone, including a number that would otherwise require 3 or 4 separate API calls. So the abstraction here is 1, not only easy to use, but 2, keeps your process model concise, easy to understand, and even easier to maintain. So to show you how this would work, if I wanted to create a record in my CRM as an example, I drag and drop it onto my canvas, and then I follow a 5-step wizard, which is the exact same whether I'm working with SAP, Salesforce, or any other system. So what I've done first is I've selected a connection string that I've been given permission to use. That gives me a scope of objects or tables that I can work with. Now you're noticing here that I'm selecting a customized object in Salesforce as denoted by the __C. So even in customized environments, AgilePoint will always be able to explore the schema in real time. So if I wanted to pass request parameters, on the left-hand side, I have my AgilePoint schema. And again, a real-time exploration of my external system on the right. And all I need to do now is visually map fields that are like for like. So as an example, if I wanted to map the first name, I can map that over to customer name. This green arrow here is telling me that it's a data type match. Now, in the case where there is a data mismatch, AgilePoint will handle 99.5 of those conversion scenarios for you. Though I will point out that there is custom conversion that you can write here as well. It's just often not typically required. Now, in the event something comes back, I can always map that to an AgilePoint form variable or process variable as an example, following the same visual mapping exercise that I've just walked us through. So now that we understand how to design these composable cross-functional automations, let's take a look at how we've wired up our algorithms to help optimize how this process executes. Our first AI extender is looking at products that are export controlled and, as a result, potentially subject to additional compliance controls. So as you're seeing here from the graphic, the algorithm is going to kick in after the sales order stage, and when export controlled products are found, we'll conditionally route an ad hoc skip to legal approval. So opening up the configuration dialog, you're going to see a very similar wizard to what we've just walked through with Salesforce. So selecting from my model, you'll see that the AI extender is going to kick in after the sales order entry stage and will be actioned when we leave that activity. So let's go ahead and go through the mappings. So what you're going to see here is we are passing various details about this instance over to the algorithm, and what's going to come back is a risk score. So here you're seeing we're checking whether this is a VIP account, their credit situation, products purchased, quantity, category, and total amount. And as we mentioned, what's going to come back here is a risk score. So there's our score. Being mapped to fields on the AgilePoint side. So when these conditions get met, there are additional actions that AgilePoint can take, including the ability to change the flow. So let's look at those conditions. So when we have a product that is in high demand, is constrained from an export point of view, in either scenario, that will route to legal approval, even if the process logic does not require for that behavior. Now, secondly, let's take a look at our second AI extender. And if you recall, this is dealing with potential shipping delay. So we're going to route back from the wait for shipment stage, if there is a high likelihood for a shipping delay, back to the shipping details activity where we can fix the delivery date, the method of shipment, and things of that nature. So similarly, let's open up the configuration here. From a request perspective, here you're seeing things like the shipping duration, shipping method, shipping country, both origin and destination, all being passed over to our algorithm. And just like the last AI extender, what's going to be returned is a risk score. Now again, as we just discussed, when those conditions are met, if it's a high or moderate risk for a shipping delay, the process will be routed back. So rather than a skip forward, this is going to be a roll back to a prior step in the process where we can fix the shipping details before resuming the process instance. So with that being said, let's take a look at this application in runtime. Just a quick word about the landing page that you're seeing on screen before we run this application. This was built, like everything else in the AgilePoint platform, through drag and drop. This was built by a component called Page Builder, where we can create landing pages for applications, teams, projects, very similar to what you might see in your corporate intranet. And you're seeing a couple of charts on screen here. Now, this is all dealing with past runs of the application. So from a legal perspective, this is where an algorithm kicked in to bring in additional legal review. You're seeing a pretty even distribution between no legal intervention required and then intervention from a mineral or export controlled product or a high demand perspective. And then from a delay predictions point of view, as you're seeing here, dominated by both high and moderate shipping delays with a small set of low shipping delay. In the middle, you're seeing a level of confidence around our prediction scores, or level of assurance. Now, typically, when building models of this nature, a high level of assurance would be in the 80% range. But as you're seeing on screen, the assurance score here is 95%, and really goes back to an item that Jesse talked about earlier. One of the main reasons that AgilePoint is so perfect for artificial intelligence is because it's easily capable of ingesting data across silos throughout the organization and ensuring that that data is of high quality, right? These are all driving factors towards reaching this level of assurance that you're seeing here on screen. Okay, so running the application, as we discussed earlier, we're going to select a scenario that is going to invoke both algorithms. So as you're seeing here, I'm just going to pre-fill some data. We do not have a VIP account. This is going to be a new order. We're going to set the payment terms a little further out here so that our algorithm can kick in. And then on the next screen, I'm going to select products that are export controlled. So far we've selected criterion that should kick in both of our algorithms, and we'll see it optimize and reroute the process as a result. Now, in my case, I know that we have a cast iron electrode that is an export controlled product. I'm going to select the product quantity so it stays under that $1 million threshold that would normally allow us to bypass legal review. So as you can see here, the total amount is $240,000. So now let's go ahead and submit this. And what we're going to see is our first algorithm kick in almost immediately. So if we go back to our dashboard, so as you can see here, we have a legal activity ready to go. And if I open up our process tracker, what we're actually going to see is that the process proceeded further. So as you're seeing here, it proceeded to the shipping details section, but when the algorithm kicked in, it performed that ad hoc skip. So we've activated a swim lane that would otherwise not be required. We've skipped the finance approval step and gone straight to the legal review. All right, so that addresses AI extender scenario 1 to skip the process forward. And you'll notice that when we open up the form, we're actually going to see a warning indicating that the process was rerouted and that the legal review step was inserted. Okay, so here's our warning. Perhaps as an example, we've taken an offline action. We've asked our customer to sign additional documentation to clear those export control requirements. I can attach that here, but I can go ahead and give the legal approval. I can upload my document. And for now, let's go ahead and move this process forward. Okay, so let's go ahead and submit. And we can go back to our process tracker here and follow along with the flow. So from here, the process is going to flow over to the shipping details section. Now at this stage, again, I'm going to input some details that ensure that our algorithm kicks in. So going back to my task list and refreshing, we'll see the shipping details section here. Now the scenario could be such that our customer has a very aggressive delivery time frame. So as an example, maybe I want the product to be available sometime early next week. So as you're seeing here, I have a delivery SLA of 5 days to the United States. Let's say this is a critical priority. We'll go ahead and submit. So all of these items now are ensuring that we have a very tight delivery time frame. So what we're going to see here after completing the order insurance stage is we'll have that algorithm kick in, indicate that there is a high likelihood for shipping delay, and it's going to route us back to the shipping details step. Okay, so here's our order insurance. I'm going to go ahead and select my favorite insurance provider. Click submit. And in just a second, we're going to see that algorithm kick in and reroute us back to the shipping details step. Okay, so as you can see, the process has moved backwards. So if you're following along at home, that is the second AI extender that's gone in and performed the ad hoc rollback. Okay, so that concludes the runtime portion of the presentation. I did promise for any developers on the line that I would show you how you can bring in your own custom AI extender capabilities beyond the out-of-the-box components. So for that, let me quickly open Visual Studio and we'll give you a look. Now, as I mentioned, for the demo you've just seen, I was using the out-of-the-box AI extender. If you'd like to create your own custom AI extenders, that is available through AgilePoint's extension framework, NX Developer, a plugin for Visual Studio. So to do this, as you're seeing here, I can just create a new project and I'm going to search for AgilePoint. Now, when I bring this up, there are a number of different new components that I can create. So an AgilePart is a system activity. So when I showed you Salesforce, that was actually created with the framework that I'm showing you here on screen. So new integrations beyond the 110 that are provided out of the box. Agile Work, on the other hand, is a human task type. So this is when I showed you the standard start activity, as well as the advanced task. All of those were created with the Agile Work framework. Agile connectors are listeners that can listen for events in systems external to AgilePoint, within AgilePoint, and take custom action. And then, of course, the Agile extender is going to be the focus for today. I can give this a name, call this AI webinar. So what this is doing here is it's getting a lot of the scaffolding pre-built for us. A lot of that heavy lifting is going to be done by this framework by default. And really all I need to do now as a developer is fill in sort of the to-do or the unique aspects of this particular activity. So on the right-hand side, I have various aspects of this new AI extender that I'd like to create. From a design time point of view here, you're seeing I can create my own web UI. So just like all of the activities that already exist within AgilePoint as of today, I can apply my own CSS, JavaScript, and HTML. I can even localize this into a number of different languages. Now, from a runtime perspective, you'll see here when I select my extender, you'll notice a section here called Event Handlers. So these are all of the engine events that I can subscribe to and take action as a result. All of the events are listed here on screen. And as you're seeing, all I would need to do is paste my code here to bring in that custom functionality. Now, finally, when I'm done, all I would need to do is right-click on my custom extender. And as you're seeing here, there's an option to create an AgilePoint deployment package. So this is packaged up into a solution, which I will then deploy to my AgilePoint server. And this now will be available as a drag and drop activity within the application designer. Okay, so that concludes my portion of today's webinar. Thank you so much, everyone, for watching. Jesse, Matt, back over to you.
All right, thank you, Lucas. Really nice job. That was quite an impressive demonstration. Okay, so this brings us to our Q&A portion, but unfortunately, we're not going to have time to answer questions live today. We will gather all the questions that were submitted by LinkedIn, and we will respond in a follow-up. To wrap up, I've got another quote about the importance of taking action. Last month's quote was from the founder of Honda. This month's quote is from Simon Sinek, a well-known visionary, author, and motivational speaker. Simon is quoted as saying, "Words may inspire, but only action creates change." So it's my hope that our words from today's session inspired you to believe that your organization can begin to realize significant benefits by tackling cross-functional value streams and applying AI. If you've been so inspired, I invite you to take action. Your first action might be to put AgilePoint to the test and see for yourself. If you don't, or if you would like to do that, you can scan this QR code and we will be glad to help you get started. Or maybe your next action is you want to dig a little deeper and get some questions answered before you give us a try. If that's the case, you can use these QR codes to connect and engage with us through LinkedIn. Regardless of what your action step is, we'd love for all of you to continue to join us in these live stream sessions. Today, we went deep on operationalizing AI for order to cash. Next month, we're planning another deep dive, but for a new use case, perhaps something like a sales quotation. The exact date of the event is to be determined, but we're shooting for the last week of March. And if I was a betting man, I'd mark my calendar for March 28th at 11 a.m. Eastern Standard Time. This brings our session to a close. If you didn't capture the QR codes fast enough or want to revisit parts of the session, don't worry, a recording will be available through LinkedIn, and it will be posted to the AgilePoint website under Events, which can be found in the Resources tab. I'd like to offer a big thank you to our presenters, Jesse and Lucas, and to everyone who watched us today. Please accept my sincere appreciation for your time and attention. Until next time, keep healthy and safe.